Welcome, everyone. We'll get started. Thanks for jotting your questions down, and we'll come back to those. If people would like cards.
Hello.
I'm so glad you're enjoying each other, but it's really lonely up here far away from you. I'm telling you. It's so weird. I appreciate the ceremony, but I feel lonely, so thank you. So those of you who just come in, folks have been jotting down a few questions they have about centers, about what their center's doing, about their role, of the way they're serving the people, the scholars who come to their centers. And we're going to ask you to set that card aside so we can pass it along so that other session leaders will also know what you're thinking about. We'll come back to them. I'm going to start.
Okay. And if you need more cards, there are here plenty on this table, and somebody can probably help us distribute. So, Teresa, would you like to introduce yourself? I don't think Teresa needs an introduction, but it's also her last year on the board. She's retired and she's wonderful, so I thought we could welcome her with a big round of applause to thank her for her wonderfulness.
That is very, very sweet. And as I keep telling faculty and friends back at Iowa, I'm planning to retire, not die, so I'll be around. So, I'm Teresa Mangum from the Obermann Center for Advanced Studies at the University of Iowa, and I'm very honored to also be a board member for CHCI.
And I'm Cristina Stanciu. I direct the Humanities Research Center at Virginia Commonwealth University, and I'm a new board member of the CHCI as of this year. I will start with a very brief plan of action for today, and then we'll do some more interactive exercises. So our plan is to get everyone at each table to think about the vision and the mission of your center, and not the verbose version of the website, but really your version, and how you plan to turn this vision into reality, or how you are already doing that. And then the third step will be communicating that vision. We also have some strategic ideas for communication, and we'll talk about those if we have time, as well as the nuts and bolts of running the center from all leadership positions. We will end with suggestions on how to pay yourself first, how to create networks of support, such as this wonderful network, and then some of the takeaways from this session you plan to bring home and use at your own institution. So with this, let's move on to Teresa.
So the theme this year is at risk, and on the board we had an amazing conversation yesterday about levels of risk, political, social, intellectual, and also the ways that centers themselves are at risk in this moment, especially of dismissals of the humanities, we'll say. So we really want to connect this more pragmatic session to that larger theme, because one of the things that Cristina and I talk about a lot is that if you don't build durable, sustainable structures, then at the least moment of risk, centers can topple, especially if you don't have some kind of endowment that secures a center. So we really want to think about how to build durable centers. To get us started, we're going to ask you to write one more time, or really to chat, and set your three questions aside, because we want to be able to use that card, and we'll turn to others. But for now, just turn to your neighbor, and we just want to take 5 minutes, 7 minutes, for you to talk about two questions. One, what purpose does the Humanities Research Center on your campus serve? Are you adhering to the stated mission on your website, or are you changing it, or have you been ignoring it for a long time because you thought other things were more important? So what is your vision, as Cristina said? And then, really think about how your vision is attached to the kind of institution you're in, whether it's an independent research center, a university, a liberal arts college, a community college. So take a few minutes just to talk with your neighbors about how you understand your vision, and think big about your vision.
And we'll report back.
And then we'll come back and ask a few people to report out. Okay, let's take a minute to come back together. Come back together. This is hilarious.
Well, I think people need to
Yes.
talk.
Yes.
If they need one more minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for what is obviously a great conversation. Can we have just a few volunteers, and unfortunately somebody's going to have to run with a mic to you, so raise your hand. Just a few volunteers to talk about to summarize very quickly, what you all raised as you discussed your vision and mission. You know I will call on you.
She can do it. She'll do it.
Vianette, I'm looking at you. Where's the mic?
Right here.
Right here.
Okay, just raise your
Who'll
hand.
start? Will you start? Here comes the mic your way.
Thank you. And please introduce yourself and let us know what center you are part of, how old the center is, the type of center, and so on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vianette Castellanos. I'm the director of the Institute for Advanced Study at the University of Minnesota. And unfortunately, we did not convene to talk about. We all just talked in our small groups. So I can't share what everybody else said, but I mean, Maurice and I talked about the purpose of our center and sort of how it's crucial for us to be able to bring the public into conversation with scholarship, and in different ways. Like we do it by hosting panels where the public is part of the conversation. We don't do lectures anymore. We have conversations between scholars and community members. And then he talked about how he has these, it's like panels where you have like a works in progress, where you'll have scholars talk about their work and invite people to, discuss the work and to intervene in the process. And so that's what we talked about.
Interesting. You want to just pass the mic to another table? Will somebody at another table chime in? And actually, we'd be really interested. I know it's great to hear about programs, but if you talked about at the higher level, what your kind of vision and mission is, that would be interesting too.
Hi, my name is Katie Ryan. I'm the director of the Arts and Humanities and Healthcare program in the Center for Bioethics and Humanities at the University of Colorado Anschutz, and I'm brand new. And we spoke about about how humanities tends to be taken for granted in certain institutions as necessary, but just existing, and thinking about from the place of a health sciences campus, how do you build meaningful collaborations with humanities leaning but not humanities trained scholars, and show your visibility as rigorous researchers and not just the people who bring good programs that make people excited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else at that table want to chime in? If not, just pass to another table.
Oh, come on.
So we also talked a little bit about the nature of public humanities, but also thinking a little bit about the lifespan of a university from an undergraduate experience kind of through the advanced faculty, and the role that humanities centers can play for all of those. I'm Greg Dickinson. I direct a brand new center called the Joe Blake Center for Engaged Humanities at Colorado State University. And being brand new, we can imagine anything we want to imagine, and have been struck by the emphasis on faculty scholarship, and wondering if we can have greater conversations along the lifespan of a university.
Great. Maybe one more table. And remember to introduce yourselves.
I'm Marian Ladd from the University of Wisconsin, and we covered staff shortages, opening a new center, restructuring, and all of the challenges that it brings.
Okay.
She stopped. Great, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we
And we'll talk for a minute about,
we can move on.
oh,
Please go ahead, Pat.
go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, I'm Pat Parker. I'm director of the Institute for the Arts and Humanities at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And Kathy and I, we want to introduce yourself?
I'm Kathy Woodward, Director of the Simpson Center for the Humanities, University of Washington in Seattle.
So we talked about our centers being very much alike in terms of structure. I don't think anyone's talked about structure. The only difference, so we're both situated in the College of Arts and Sciences. We both focus on faculty research, although they also focus on graduate students. The difference is that our center has an external advisory board that is primary there for development, fundraising, that we had very different stories in terms of our engagement with the college and what that means. And for me, our external advisory board buffers us from being rated by the college, our funds being rated, to put it crassly. We're not on video, are we? Anyway, so yeah, so that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Okay. So we wanted to shift to thinking about translating vision into reality. And I just want to say for a minute before we do that, one of the things that I've come to think is hugely important is to have a very pie-in-the-sky big vision to communicate, as well as concrete activities and programs. And in my case, one of the things that's crucially important to me is that when a scholar walks through the door of the Obermann Center, they feel like their ideas are valued, that they are at a place of learning, a place of sharing great ideas. And so I would add to what you all have said as part of my vision and mission, I don't even know exactly what to call it, but I would say atmosphere and support, a real feeling in a world where you feel like the humanities and individuals' work is being chiseled away at by administrative work and other demands all the time. Yeah. I want people to walk in the door and feel like we are in a place where big ideas matter and great conversations are critical to our existence. And I think it makes all the difference in the world when centers gain that reputation. And Cristina, do you want to say a little bit about your advocacy that you were talking about?
Sure. One of the things Teresa and I were talking about during this discussion period was the idea that the vision changes, and as leadership changes, other priorities determine, the next strategies for the center. So when I started as a director 3.5 years ago, my goal was to rescue the center from almost dissolution by a new dean. And as we progressed, we turned that center, originally in the College of Humanities and Sciences, into a vibrant university-wide center now with funding and lots of projects. And so my mission was survival and salvaging the at-risk center into something viable. And as I look to my next 3-year term, my goal is really to infuse humanities into every corner of a very STEM-centered university. How do we do that? Through advocacy. If you have ideas for advocacy plans, right, how would that look like in terms of educating not just upper administration, but also colleagues on the medical campus, business school, you name it, School of the Arts, in becoming partners, right, and creating these strategic partnerships to elevate the mission and the visibility of the humanities on campus. So this is what I plan to do. We'll see if I succeed, but this is my pie in the sky sort of vision for the next 3 years.
And we wanted to just talk about a few pragmatic ways to turn these visions and hopes that we all have into reality, and share a few resources and examples. So after a number of years of my coming up with, in all capital letters, too many ideas, the staff and I worked together to design what we call the sieve. And you can click through and find it. It's on the Obermann website. There's a whole page of resources that we put together that are for anyone to share. And what we do with the sieve that has proven enormously valuable to help us all stay on track with what we think matters most, is when we're considering a new idea or a new program, we start with the vision, and then we go through the sieve, which asks a series of very specific questions. What kind of program is this? Who do we imagine it will benefit, and how? How does it explicitly and directly activate our mission? And it's been enormously helpful in avoiding what Carrie Ann Rockemore calls eventification, which is starting to kill yourself and your staff by trying to host so many events just to justify your existence, and instead to slow down, to be more thoughtful, more intentional about where time, resources will best serve the faculty and students and staff that you really hope to be in service of. So you're welcome to use the sieve. And one of the things the sieve also helps us do is balance programs. So when I'm planning what we're doing in the next year with my colleagues, I'm thinking what serves the individual scholar, what builds collaboration, where do we connect with the public? And so we're always kind of balancing. And I think that was just a kind of intentionality that didn't occur to me until I had been at the center for a number of years and was doing too much of everything. So enjoy the sieve if you decide that would be useful. And Cristina was going to give a couple of examples too.
Right, thank you. And thank you for coaching me through the last 3 years. And Jennifer Ho is also here, and she's shared a lot of wonderful ideas. In creating and implementing this vision, we rely, like many of you, on faculty advisory boards as well as community advisory boards. For us, that's still in an incipient phase, but we've benefited, like many of you, from speaking with faculty, not just in the College of Humanities and Sciences, but throughout the university. And I want to give a shout out to Sylvia Miller. Is she here from FHI? Hi, Sylvia. We were very lucky to host Sylvia at the HRC in Richmond a couple of times now when I started as a director, and then just last December to see how much we've progressed. And Sylvia does these amazing visioning charrettes. And it's a great opportunity to get us all in the same room and to get us to talk about, not just planning, but what works, what doesn't, and to really take stock of where we are. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to target, specific administrators you want to have in the room, specific community members, and to really work together. I really like Bianette's idea of transforming, these talks into conversations with scholars and community members. I think this is the direction we're also taking at the center. The last thing I'll say, I'm not sure how imaginative our programming is. Our center is fairly young. We are only 10 years old. Our 10th anniversary is coming up. So we are still, seeing the pains of growth, as it were. But because we are on a STEMI campus, and because research equals money, as many of you know, we have to justify our existence and submit these huge reports as our scientist colleagues do. We started on a whim creating what we call humanities labs at the center. And we started with environmental and health humanities labs in our first year. We added 5 more, and it exceeded all my expectations in terms of how resourceful my colleagues are in bringing everyone to the table and in guiding conversations that make humanists not, adjacent to a project, but really central to projects. So this has been, I'm happy to talk one-on-one about the, each of the labs. I think it's a great model that also persuades our higher administrators, especially my VP for research, that when you fund the lab, it's a real thing. When you fund the working group, I think we have a path for staying humanists at the core, but I think the type of collaborative work emerging from these conversations, the publications, one of the labs just won a big NEH grant. They are poised to apply for others. Is really gratifying to see how collaborative work can happen between English scholars, scholars in the School of Medicine. We have one of the best School of the Arts in the country, and how just bringing people together in the same room can be so generative and leading to so many wonderful projects. So I'll stop here.
And I've been loving hearing about these labs this last year. It sound amazing. We're going to make a leap now to a different topic, although it's all connected, and that is communications. So as many of you are finding, as we are finding, we're now in this strange communications arms race with everything else happening on campus in the community. And I don't know about you, but my university has now decided that every email and every website needs to look alike. And I am not sure how in the world you even begin to distinguish yourself with this problem, and I suspect you're facing it too. We're going to go rogue to a certain extent, but which I always advise. But we wanted to talk a little bit about communications. So on your second card, just take a minute to jot a few responses. And I said flip it over, but actually leave the first one separate. And if you would just jot down, how does your center share news? How do you get the word out? Or if you're just starting as a director, how do you yourself get news? How do you discover what events are happening on campus, what opportunities are being offered? So just jot down a few of the ways you get information. And also about national events as well as events at your center.
Okay, I think we have a mic here, and it will be circulating. So who would like to get us started?
All right, you guys are at the front table, so you're nominated.
There was a hand over there in the middle. Can you raise your hand again?
You just escaped your fate. You'll be safe. We'll send it to you.
Hi, Jack Chen, University of Virginia Institute of the Humanities and Global Cultures. I was discussing, actually, I defected from that table earlier. I was discussing the amount of handwork I have to do. So I have to write emails when we have events to basically invite people to come into the room. Part of that's because of COVID and the pandemic, and people have felt the habit, I think, of coming to the room. But I spend a lot of time writing individual emails when I have an event or a symposium saying that, you should come see this. Also inviting people to dinner. We have a weekly email that gets sent out. Ann Gilliam, my wonderful administrator there. And we have an institute calendar. I think one of the things that we would love to have is a pan-college calendar for all the humanities events, because I know that the English department has their own calendar. We have a calendar, and of course, no one checks each other's calendars, and this is a constant sort of problem. There is social media, which we're trying to use. We have Instagram, which I think has like 5 subscribers. I don't know. It's not great. I think then on the other hand, the problems are there is a college newsletter that we have trouble getting access to. Right? There is a university newsletter. No one ever answers our requests to be added to that. Of course, we're just sort of thinking about CHCI's network, but there must be other sort of networks and consortia that would allow for dissemination. So, those are sort of the kind of things, but again, it's a lot of individual time and effort.
Great. Are we coming back to Paul? Was your hand up, Paul?
Thanks. I'm Paul Fleming. I'm at Cornell. I direct the Society for the Humanities there. The way we get news out, and this is thanks to Julie at the other table, my brilliant staff there. So we have many different avenues. We have a Monday humanities events email list that we send out that foregrounds our events, but then includes all other humanities events as well to just get the word out about the humanities. Then we do a Wednesday email that's a little bit deeper dive about grant opportunities, funding, kind of not event-based, but more other types of opportunities. Then we have an annual newsletter that we use. And then going back to our colleague there, I also do write emails directly to, so I collect the chairs together for a monthly meeting, so direct emails to chairs to get news out and to bring them together and to meet together to talk about things concerning the humanities. So those are the different avenues that we use.
Fantastic. Let's take two more.
Perhaps to give a counterexample, we don't communicate much. I'm the director of Academy in Exile. And we have a fellowship program for scholars at risk, and we protect their identity so you don't find their names on our website. Because people have tried to find out who the fellows are and tried to target them. And we've been targeted as well. So we keep things quiet. When we have a call for applications, then we send it out to Scholars at Risk, to CHCI, to trusted networks to be circulated. And what else do we do? We went off social media. We don't do it anymore because it's too easy for people to just comment on us, on our work. So we keep things quiet and try to build trusted, very conservative, conventional ways of communicating. And that makes our work more possible. Otherwise, we have sometimes workshops or conferences under Chatham House rules, for example, one which was organized by a Russian philosopher, and she invited Ukrainian scholars, and this was hosted at one of the institutes in our area, and only trusted people were invited to talk. So we actually create the space for people to talk. And a journalist may come, but then he or she has to report under Chatham House rules. So maybe because it's unusual, I thought I'd share this.
Thank you. There's another hand there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Derwin. I'm the director of the Interdisciplinary Center at UC Santa Barbara. And something that we do in addition to the more traditional or conventional avenues to cultivate is that I, especially in the early years of my directorship, cultivated relationships with local editors and journalists in community publications and also on campus. And we're able to get some sort of standardized or ritualized space in the publications. So when we would do our announcement of our year-long thematic programming series, there would be an article in the campus newspaper about that. When we were doing programs that engage the community, we would be able to reach out, and we do, to local journalists. And I see this year, as staff turns over, it's time for a refresh, because they seem to have forgotten us in certain areas, but I think it can be useful, and you reach a large audience that way.
That's great. Thank you. There's one more hand. Oh, no. Okay.
Where's that hand?
No hand. Okay, I think we're done.
I think it was a wave.
Oh, that was a wave.
A welcome wave.
Fleeting hand.
Is there anyone else who uses other strategies that haven't been mentioned yet that you'd be willing to share?
Okay. Oh, there are two hands. Okay.
Kali,
Thank you.
yeah.
Hi, I'm Anne Fuchs. I'm the director of the UCD Humanities Institute. We do all the things that you've mentioned, but one thing that we do in addition is that we produce 2-minute podcasts by our researchers. So these are postdocs or PhD students who are invited to produce a 1 or 2-minute podcast maximum on their research. And we have a very successful podcast series which attracts national attention anyway and international attention. So that's one way of featuring their own research interests very effectively. So these are then produced by themselves but edited by a professional and then uploaded on our podcast website.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks so much. Kylie?
Hello, okay. I'm Kylie Message-Jones. I'm Director of the Humanities Research Centre at the Australian National University. One of the things that I do is And I've just really started this year, but I write op-eds a lot. So basically, I have one idea, and I use different case studies, and I'll write one for a sectoral blog or media site. I'll write another article on a very similar topic for a disciplinary site or newsletter like the Australian Academy of the Humanities, and I'll then also write a public version for a local newspaper. So I get sector, I get discipline, and I get the public. And that started to work really well. And you can kind of knock them out over a few days and then distribute them across a time frame, and it works pretty well. The other thing that we do is, and the reason that works is because it gets people to the centre, it gets people to the university. The other thing that we do is partner on our events with lots of other institutions or organisations, and partly the reason we do that is because that partner has their own distribution lists, so it gets information about our events out to their audiences.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I'll just add a couple of things that we do. These are all great suggestions. One of the things we worry about a lot is oversaturation. So we're always kind of balancing how often, really trying to carefully strategize the weekly news or biweekly newsletter in relation to notifying people of individual events with very colorful emails. But that timing is interesting. But a lot of the ways we support other departments is through co-sponsorships, just small amounts of money and advertising. But we now, thanks to our brilliant staff, including Lauren Cox, who's here, they insist that before we distribute the money and do the advertising, that the entity must list the event on the university calendar and tag the Obermann Center, which sucks the description of the event right into our calendar. But that's a way, and that we have instructions on how to do that. So we're really trying to train faculty to think differently about communications also. And I think we've seen a real shift in, how many times have you seen a department host an event and send out one email and surprise, surprise, 5 people show up? And so we're really trying to spread that knowledge. And the other thing that you're all welcome to use too, or take a look at on that resource page on the Obermann Center, is we now, whenever we host any kind of event of any size at all, we don't just communicate, we develop a communications plan. We have a mapped out plan that the whole staff understands and thinks through, and they're great at really being strategic about where it goes. We have different mailing lists, et cetera. But that strategic plan, you'll find online if you'd like to use it, is everything from putting together a plan for a speaker to putting together a plan for a conference, a year-long communications plan, and that's been enormously helpful and time-saving in the long run, too.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you for these wonderful ideas. We do monthly newsletters, and we found that doing faculty profiles or spotlights to preface each newsletter, faculty from all over the university always brings in new audience members. So we've tried that. I would like to go back to Susan's point, which I really like, creating relationships with local editors and journalists, planting stories. I think this works really well. Sometimes even offering talking points to journalists. Sometimes we do that when we write speeches for higher administration, just because we want certain things to be, accurately said. But I think I really like your plan, your idea, Teresa, of creating a communications plan and being very intentional. Something we didn't do during our first year was to really spread the news locally and nationally. And as we grow, I think we are spreading the the joy through multiple venues. These are some of the things we thought about, but these are not.
A lot of which you all have already hit. Yeah, but I really take your point about the individual email, because every event we host, I decide who are the 20 people I most want in the room, and I write the personal emails. And I also send a group email to a group of department chairs and ask them to forward it. And it means so much to faculty to hear, I think you're exactly the right person to come to dinner with that person or to introduce that person. It really does make people feel seen, so it has that added advantage, even though it takes a lot of time.
I think we are. Would you like to take
So again, another leap. We just wanted to take a minute to talk a bit about staffing and structures. And we, at the beginning I mentioned that building durable centers really does require thought about things many of us, those of us who are faculty members, many of us have no experience with whatsoever. Many of us have not managed groups of people. We have not had to really strategically think about roles within an institution. Often the staff members in our institutions are much more thoughtful and sophisticated in understanding how roles work, having worked as teams. And so we just wanted to quickly talk about this, and if you have thoughts, welcome them before we wind up, that we really think, Cristina and I both in our conversations, we've thought about the long view of what we mean by staff. And so I, for example, report to the Vice President for Research. And that means I have to constantly be thinking about how do I inform the Vice President without being a gnat, annoying him with too many emails, but how do I really keep him in the loop, and how do I bring him into the center to meet scholars and really learn firsthand about what the humanities, what it means in translation. Most people who are deans and who are in these vice presidential positions, they tend to be scientists. So it's a real project of education. So that's part of our staff. But then, many of our centers are organized radically differently, and I'm so envious of those of you who have large staffs. But I do think it's very important to stay sane, for everyone to stay sane, to think through the roles within the staff and who will do what, not to reproduce effort. And so in our case, accounting, because we have grants, is a really important position, and that the person who is the overall manager of the center has become so good at that. And we've also worked, like many of you have, trying to stretch staff and also learning opportunities by thinking about where students can work in the center, undergraduate and graduate, in ways that really professionalize them, as well as supporting our work. And Cristina, do you want to talk about boards, or?
I can talk about boards. I'm new to this, so I've only worked with faculty boards, which our faculty board, which has been very helpful. But I would love to learn more about external or community advisory boards, especially as it relates to fundraising and advice on connecting scholarship to the work of community projects. So I'd be happy to sit down and learn more about this. One of the things I wanted to mention was the sort of the spreading of the administrative structure. I found, especially in the last 2 years, not finding that hierarchical, director, associate director, and then staff members, but really distributing responsibility through our labs and having the lab directors or the project directors, who are faculty members, in charge of a variety of projects. And this has turned our center from a top-down center where the decisions were made, by one person, to a very democratic, consultative group of people who contribute more or less equally to decision-making. So that's all I have.
And out of that same impulse, we started a number of years ago thinking about who are really strategic partners with the center and with the humanities. So on our advisory board, we have faculty members who I know are really creative, inventive people and who have great networks themselves. But we also often have someone from the art museum, someone from the library, the research side of the library, and that's really helped build partnerships within the University Public Policy Center as well as outside the university. So we can linger here for a moment, or are there questions or just advice that you'd like to share about the structures you've created? Because we have one last topic to cover, and we want to do whatever serves you best. I think, yeah, Jennifer? You're
It's
being recorded, Jennifer.
It's recorded, so you need to use the mic.
Jennifer Ho, University of Colorado Boulder. So one of the things I did when I took over as director of the Center for Humanities at Boulder is that I don't make any decisions when it comes to money. So I'm ex officio on every committee, but I find I have a very robust internal faculty steering committee that makes financial decisions. And what this allows me to do is when I have faculty who have been unhappy because they haven't received a faculty fellowship or because they have a project they want to do, I direct them to where they can apply on our website. And I'm able to really talk with faculty and even read through their applications and give them advice because I'm very clear that I do not weigh in on decisions regarding money. And I think what that has helped me do as someone who is outside of the university who came in was to try and build trust.
Excellent. Anyone else? Thank you, Jennifer. Hey, Robert. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Robert Newman. I'm the director of the National Humanities Center. I just wanted to let people know that we'll be hosting in the second weekend in November a long weekend, 3-day weekend boot camp for new and relatively new Humanities Center directors from wherever. And we'll be covering many, many of these topics and talking about best practices and workshopping these best practices. So if you're interested, take a look at our website. I'll be happy to talk to you about it as well. But it'll be a very concentrated weekend on how to deal with boards, how to get money out of your dean, how to navigate a university system, how to more effectively generate communication nationally and internationally, how to build effective fellowship programs, et cetera. So just wanted to let you know about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So should we jump to the last? Yeah. So we wanted to wind up by reminding you that as a director, you're going to be a rare bird. There's one humanities center on most campuses. And so one of the things that we both have leaned on heavily is finding our own mentors and our own networks. This organization, CHCI, has been a great support and a great network for many of us, and I hope it will be for all of you, those of you who are new. But there are also things that you can do on campus. One of the first things I did when I took the position as director at my university was to look around the university and say, who else is leading weird things? And that meant, you know, the Public Policy Center and the Art Museum and special collections in the library, as well as a couple of other academic centers. And I just wrote to all of them, invited them to coffee. And we ended up meeting for 10 years once a month, and whoever could come would show up. But that turned out to be one of the most emotionally and socially supportive, inspiring groups that I've been part of. And we also ended up collaborating in new ways none of us had ever thought of before. I also started another group that I called Women Who Rule. That was a bar group instead of a coffee group. And I just looked around campus and thought, where are women who are the chairs of departments, especially humanities and social science departments? Where are associate deans? And again, that group would get together for coffee once a semester, and we had great, hilarious conversations, but we also talked about things like salary differentials and strategies for communications that we've been discussing. So I would say really think about who on your campus or nearby is a great support system for you, as well as now that we're all comfortable with Zoom, are there other center directors you want to get together with once in a while and just share ideas, because it will make your job a much greater pleasure to you and a good place to vent, but also to be inspired.
That's wonderful. Nothing else to add. I was wondering if anyone would like to share their own networks of mentoring that they've benefited from besides CHCI and perhaps other campus organizations and connections. Yes. Thank you. The mic will get to you. Hang tight.
Since we're here at University of California, Berkeley, and I'm sitting at a table with quite a few University of California representatives, we're really lucky to have a 10-campus University of California system, and we have the University of California Humanities Network that meets in person with faculty directors and staff directors, and hi, Catherine, there's another one over there, once a year, and then the staff leadership meets monthly by Zoom. And so it's been a really amazing network and extremely supportive, particularly for the staff directors. We do a lot of planning of collaborative projects across between campuses and across campuses. We talk about salaries and salary differentials and our job descriptions, shared job descriptions, and all kinds of just fun conversations to support each other. And that's been a really great network for us. And I know not all states have a University of California type system, but even just regionally, if there's opportunities to set up those kinds of networks, I encourage that. And we are going to talk more about that at our panel tomorrow afternoon. So you can hear more about how the University of California Humanities Network works.
We have one more comment, and then I think we'll wrap it up.
Hi, I'm Carla Freeman from Emory, from the Center for the Fox Center for Humanistic Inquiry. This is more a plea than a comment of experience. I'm new this year to being the director and having spent the last 9 years in the dean's office at Emory. And I'm really looking for a network. And so this is just a plea to a few of you who I've met individually who are based in Georgia, but if there are others of you in the Southeast region who would be interested in kind of developing a consortium of directors, I'd be really keen to help facilitate that. So,
thank you. I think the last thing that we want to say to everyone is just on behalf of all of your colleagues, thank you. It is really a huge undertaking. It is a joy, but a huge undertaking to be a center director, the staff at a center. And I think, you know, one of the things you can know about yourself is every day, you are making life better for the scholars and many of the students on your campus. And it's such a privilege and such an honor to have these positions, but it's also a huge responsibility. So thank you. Thank you all.
And if I may plug one last comment and gratitude to Teresa. My advice to the newer center directors would be find your own Teresa. I can't tell you how much I've benefited from knowing her over the last 3.5 years, and she took me under her wing very generously, and I'm a much better person and center director for it. And with that, let's give Teresa another big round of applause, and thank you all.
Thank you. As part of this membership plenary session, we wanted to do a very brief report, as it says on the program. So it's just going to be 15 minutes in which we will report to you about the activities of the last year and maybe even more about what we are looking to do in the coming year. So I'll pass it on to Stephen.
Okay, thanks, Guillaume. So a lot of what I say this morning I've telegraphed already in my president's letter to the membership. You can use that URL to get to the report in all its details. One of the things I've really wanted to kind of keep in mind and I'm sort of sensitive to is the sense that, like, over the years that CHCI is an organization that's developed, in essence, two missions. One of its missions has been to sort of foster international research collaboration. Most recently, this has been achieved largely through our Global Humanities Institutes, which have been really sort of productive, but sort of limited in terms of their kind of impact on the broader membership of the organization. And the other we just got evidence of in the last panel, which is the fostering of kind of humanities in infrastructure and leadership. And these have always felt like missions that have lived in two separate parts of the organization. And I very much want to kind of bring them into much closer alignment. This year's theme is one attempt to do that, right? This year's conference is one attempt to kind of bring those two missions into closer alignment. Guillaume will be saying a little bit more about a sort of transition we're hoping to make in our research collaboration program we're calling CHCI Initiatives, but that too is intended to kind of bring those two missions into closer alignment. One thing we wanted to sort of announce is that we will be meeting in November 21st and 22nd, I believe, in Berlin. We're still sort of in the process of organizing that meeting. Another key sort of characteristic of CHCI is that it is an international organization, and our international regions operate differently. In some regions, humanities centers are actually not housed in universities, but are kind of independent organizations, and whereas in the United States, they're often housed within universities as units of the university. So this is an opportunity for us both to kind of, there's a lot of rebuilding that we need to do in the wake of the pandemic. In terms of membership that has plateaued in certain regions, in particular Europe. So that's one thing that we want to kind of attend to, is to kind of build our membership in Europe, so that's part of the goal. That's part of the goal of having a meeting in November in Berlin. We'll be forming a committee in this summer to organize that meeting, settle on a theme, and sort of begin the work of kind of inviting organizations in Germany and particularly Eastern Europe to that meeting in November. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we have begun to organize our nominations committee for the next slate of nominations to the CHCI board. Our current board member, Razinka Chowdhury, has generously agreed to chair that committee. So thank you, Razinka. I'm really appreciative. You can self-nominate and submit nominations to the CHCI board through the URL on the CHCI website. You can also speak to Rosinka or me or Guillaume about any center directors you think we ought to reach out to as possible members of the CHCI board. Guillaume?
Thank you. I would just add about the meeting that Stephen mentioned that we're having in November in Berlin, is that it precedes the next annual meeting will take place in the first half of July. We will we'll communicate exact date later, but in Berlin as well. So it's preparation for our next annual meeting, which will take place there. As Stephen mentioned, I want to talk about our research programs and some of the changes that we're implementing. As Stephen said, this is building off of the Global Humanities Institutes, which are very much alive at this point. So I wanted to mention what is currently happening with the Global Humanities Institute. There are two that have just concluded. Actually, the Global Racism, Cold War Humanism, and Imagination of Just Future Global Humanities Institute was supposed to conclude April 26, 27 at Columbia, so it did not happen for a reason that you will all understand, so it will happen actually in October. The Post-Extractivist Legacies and Landscapes, Humanities, Artistic, and Activist Response just concluded in December, I think, of November of last year. And there is one missing here, which is the one that's Justice Design AI, which is going to take place in Pretoria in July, so just in less than 2 months. So the main event is going to take place there. And finally, there is the last one called Indigenous Mobilities, Tourism, and Racial Capitalism that will take place in early 2026. So it's just really in the early stage, and we're very excited about it. This is a GHI that is going to lead to the creation of a Indigenous Humanities network within CHCI, so we are very excited about that. But this will also be the last GHI that we will be supporting. And the reason for this is that we have decided to transform this program, and I want to acknowledge all the GHIs that have taken place from the first one about the crisis of democracy, challenges of translation. We had one on migrations. There was one on climate justice. Some of the PIs are here. And I think in total it's close to 40 centers and institutes that have been involved in that. And the work has been amazing. It's also hundreds of participants, and we are especially proud that half of those have been early career scholars and to have supported that. That being said, about 40 centers represent a fraction of our membership, and if there's been one frustration with the Global Humanities Institute, is going through much more applications that were coming from you with projects that were very exciting that we couldn't fund, and often on the same topic, and we really wanted to do some matchmaking sometime, but we didn't have the capacity to fund everything. And so what we decided to do is to actually just do that, was to go to the Mellon Foundation and ask them whether we could change our project in order to address this. And so what we've came up with is a program that we call Initiatives. I don't want to get into too many details. If you go on our website, currently the top banner has a link that introduced the initiative, and then it gets into many more details than I can cover now about the reasoning that's behind it and what we're trying to achieve with it. So I'll try to be very practical just about it to give you a sense of what this program is. As I said, it's an evolution of the GHI models. We've learned a lot from it, but it is also something that's informed by programs within other programs that are oriented toward the membership. And I'm thinking about the Membership Activity Fund that has offered kind of a smaller scope support to many of you already. And we've learned from that what are the kind of projects that all of you wanted to fund and were actually doing, and we could coordinate. So that has also been an inspiration for this new model. And so our goal is with the initiatives to be able to include as many projects and programs as we can around themes that are focused on urgent global issues. So that's essentially what we've been doing with the GHIs. Some of the things I mentioned before, whether it's AI, climate change, or migrations, these are already global challenges. But we wanted to really focus the work that you are already doing and coordinating it around specific themes. So what we'll be doing is that we're going to start with 2 inaugural themes for the initiatives. They're going to happen at the same time over 2025 and 2026. And those 2 themes are global justice and humanities practices, and the second one, human craft in the age of digital technologies. So you'll see on our website there is more detail. I shouldn't say a lot more about those themes. They're intentionally broad because we want to be able to have the participation of a very wide range of programs that are related to those themes. And actually, we're counting on the membership to help us refine the definition of those themes through the projects and programs that they're going to propose to us. So there will be, there is an open call for participation for all CHCI members. It's already online. There'll be a link on the screen at the end. What we mean by all CHCI members is that if you currently already have a program or a project that's designed around those themes, you will be welcome to join, to express your interest in participating in those initiatives. If you are want to design or plan now programs and projects around those themes, you can also apply, express your interest to join the initiatives, and also apply for financial support. I'll say more about that in just a second. Here I put some elements like a brief timeline. This call is going to be open until December 1st. We want to get back to everyone, whether you are asking for financial support or just bringing a program to join the initiative by the end of January. And the first kind of gathering, convening of all the participants in the initiative is going to be an online workshop in May of 25. And it's going to precede an in-person session at the annual meeting around both initiatives. We'll have sessions. And this is also one of the ways in which we are trying to integrate our research programs a lot more within the rest of our activities, so the annual meeting being one of them. So now I just want to say a few words about the participation, how you can participate, and again, there's a lot more online. So as I said, all members who already have programs that are related to those themes or are planning it are welcome to participate. As I also explained, we are trying to have a lot more programs that we can support. So we're hoping to support up to 12 projects and programs per initiative, so a total of 24 across the 2 initiatives. We will ask you to select a level of support, of financial support online. I think we want to cover also a very large scope, different types of projects. So it will go from 5,000 to 25,000. And we are asking, we're going to ask the wealthiest of our members, and what we mean by that, members who are in the 2nd and 3rd tier of our membership, to bring financial matches. There is also more information about that, the nature of those matches on our website. As I mentioned, this form for participation is already online and available now. Again, I've mentioned already those dates. This here is the link to the new section of the website that describes this in more detail. And I'm very aware that you will have a lot of questions about how to apply and the form of this program. So today, I'll be hosting one of the tables, one of those patio conversation. If you have any question, please come during lunch and I'll be happy to answer them. One last thing that I want to say is that, this is really meant, as Stephen was saying, to help with aligning what we do in the realm of supporting research for all of you, and the kind of activities and programming that you're having day to day on your own campuses. This is really meant to achieve that. So in our presentation, those things are separated, but we think very much of the two of them together. And Aaron now is going to talk more about those membership program activities and about our membership in general. Thanks, Guillaume. So great to be here with all of you, first of all. Matching faces with emails, finally. So I'm Aaron Fay, the Membership and Diversity Officer, the man behind the newsletters. And so just actually one clarification before I forget is we have this wonderful new program initiatives. This is not going to affect the membership activity fund. That'll still exist, and those guidelines will not change. So that funding still comes out from your dues, and we still have an annual pot of money for those requests. That will not be tied to any theme that we're organizing. So what I want to use my few minutes on is to go over some of the programs related to membership that we've rolled out in the last year and the kind of thinking behind them, and also our thinking for our strategic planning moving forward. So here we go. In the last few years, last year we introduced a 3-year option for membership, and 50 members took us up on that opportunity, so that's a 1/6 of our entire organization, so that's really great. They locked in their dues rate for the next 3 years, and so at any point, if you're interested in that, let us know. I know some of you are kind of bureaucratically locked into the annual membership, and we understand. We also rolled out a complimentary membership tier for low budget members. And so for those who don't remember, tier 1 for us is $50,000 US and under. So that's for us a low budget center. And tier 2 is 50 to 250, and tier 3 is 250 and above. I was talking to a group the other day, and they were shocked to hear that the 3rd tier even exists, that those centers even are out there. So that might be you. So we were really happy to offer that to everybody, specifically to networks, to offer to project collaborators who would never even consider joining us, because $100 is just, even that is too much. So I think you can kind of see the trend. We're trying to lower the barrier to entry to membership, because I think what's important, especially because we focus so much on collaborations, is that you all have access to as many collaborators as possible in the directory. So the more the merrier is sort of the company line right now. So how do we support our networks was kind of the first question on my mind last year. So we, along with a board committee, created guidelines for network creation, sustaining one, how to dissolve one even. So there's a lot more clear timeline and process for that. So we also, they each have 3 complimentary memberships to give out regardless of tier. So network leaders should be aware of that. And it's been slightly underused, but this is just the start of things. We also have been supporting funding for networks through the Membership Activity Fund, so we can equitably consider all funding requests at once. And the next deadline for MAF is in October, I believe. We have continued our scholarships to this annual meeting and have increased the number that we've given out, and so we're so happy to have those recipients among us today. And this was also just generally one of the most robust years for network activity. I won't go through each network because of time, but we'll hear from 3 of them this week. And then the other question was, how do we support conversation amongst members throughout the year, not just at annual meeting? And we relaunched the administration network, as many of you know, and it now has a listserv where we hope to foster conversation. Board member Jennifer Ho is the chair, and the committee, the network will be both board and staff supported directly. So moving forward, really what is on our mind is how do we support our newest centers, directors, and staff? So in response to this, oh, actually, I forgot to do one important thing, which is welcome our newest members. And recognize that, there's 2 slides here, recognize that a lot of these members came to us through our network and through your projects. About 2/3 of these members did. So recruitment really is in our members' hands, and you are our biggest allies in finding new centers to work with. I'll also post this on the Padlet so folks can see this later. I already reviewed this.
And so we're creating a new mentorship program for both directors and staff. It will be a combined application. The call will open soon, this or next week, once I put it online. And this will be run through the academic year. The application will be, the deadline is in August, and we hope to match pretty quickly. There'll be a couple workshops, but really it'll be about individual conversations, really like Cristina and Teresa, conversations throughout the year, really intimate like details of your, of your work. And so I'll leave it there. And we're also seeking self-nominations for experienced mentors. Yeah, so as I was saying, how do we support new centers? And also, how do we intervene during times of transition and crisis? And so for that, we're really talking amongst ourselves on the board and in staff on what programs and what resources we can offer in times of crisis and transition. And so if you have ideas about that, we're really all ears. And also, how do we continue to diversify and internationalize, but also deepen the relationships we have and not just have someone collaborate for one project and go away. So if these questions interest you, please come to me throughout the week, and these are actively on my mind in the next year. Thank you. And I think that's it.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah? Oh, no questions, right? Okay. Okay, thank you, and we'll transition to the next session now, next part.